SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Here's your sign.
Bill Engvall, here's your sign. It wasn't my time. Friday, August 7th, the Heindel Center for the Performing Arts in Sanatovia. Get tickets now at heindelcenter.org.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday Eve.
We cranked things up this morning with the one, the only Brian Hadad, co-host of SportsTalk Mississippi, and, of course, the wildly successful Thunder and Lightning coming at us live from Tampa, Florida. It's SEC Media Days. What's happening there, Brian?
Just keep pumping me up, Gerard. I love it, man. What else do I do good? Make sure my wife's listening.
Oh, man. Oh, man. What's going on? You got your headset on. You're good to go, man.
We're locked in. You know, today is Mississippi State Day. We're expecting the Bulldogs here on on Radio Road, Digital Drive, whatever they want to call it now.
Yeah.
In about an hour or so. Had Ole Miss yesterday. Had a great conversation with Trinidad Chambliss, with Kewan Lacey, with William Eccles. You can find all that at SuperTalk, wherever you get your podcast from. It's all right there for you. So yeah, it's been busy 4 days here in Tampa. Gerard, I'm so tired of Eastern time. We gotta figure something out here. Trump wants to make everything daylight savings. I want to do one time zone. Get the president on the phone. Central time from coast to coast.
There you go. I got it. Well, and just imagine you're going to be traveling back and be all messed up again. So.
No, I can't. I'm telling you, I'm just locked into Central time. We've been trying to figure out all day, Gerard. It's like, all right, so this is at 11:05. No, it's at 10:05. It's at 11:05 here. It's 10:05. We're just trying to figure it out.
I got you. Well, we appreciate you joining us. So, all right, what's the theme? What's the buzz? We talked to Borky Monday earlier in the week, of course, and he was talking about how just the whole idea of the government getting in and regulating college sports, that it's just gone a bit rogue, and he's not a fan of that. I'm not either. That's something we definitely agree on. Has that continued to be discussed during the week?
Can we go a step further and say we're not a fan of the government being involved in any darn thing?
Exactly.
We'll
I'm
take
with
that.
you. I'm with you.
Right now, as much as it pains me to say this, but Tommy Tuberville with a great idea. I like his bill. There are two things that right now happening in college football that if you could get a hold of them, the eligibility and the transfer portal, I think a lot of other stuff would fall into place, and just simplify things and tell the NCAA, you have the ability to enforce your own rules. Right now we have an organization that has rules but can't enforce them. Okay. Now, imagine if your police department was like, yeah, these things are against the law. Well, what happens if I do them? Oh, nothing. That's where we are with college football right now. So they need to simplify. Now, Gerard, if anybody knows, you know, the government is not really about the simplification process of things.
Amen.
So we'll see how that works out. But, man, that if they could just give the NCAA power to do its own job, I think we could fix a lot of issues really quickly in college football.
Okay. Now, you know this. You hear this a lot, that a lot of people believe that the NCAA, as we know it today, may be dissolved and replaced, and we may break out and have new association, multiple associations. Is that a topic of discussion as well?
Well, Greg Sankey brought it up on Monday when he addressed the media, talked about the potential for a breakaway.
Okay.
Here's the problem with a breakaway in terms of you want to create a super conference, basically, right?
Yeah.
You're going to take the best teams. Maybe you take all the teams in the SEC, right? Maybe you take, but I doubt it. You take maybe the top half. Take the top 5 or 6 out of the Big Ten, the top couple out of the ACC and the Big 12. You put Notre Dame in there, right? Somebody's got to lose a bunch of games, Gerard.
Yeah.
Is Alabama going to put themselves into a position where they're like, hey, we might go 2-10 this year? You know, what's a bad season in Alabama right now? 8-4? That might get a coach fired.
Yeah.
What does 2-10 get you? Is Ohio State going to put themselves in a position where they might go 3-9 one year because they're just playing Georgia and Texas and Alabama and Michigan? There's no off weeks in there.
Yeah.
You need wins.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I don't ever see a true breakaway coming. At some point, and this is a tough pill for people to swallow, but like at some point you just have to say, we're making enough money. We got to just figure out how to keep it the way that it is. But is that going to happen? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, all right. So, Brian, in general, are the coaches, are they fans of this chaotic environment we have with the collective and the NIL and these players making all this money and the portal? That's probably the bigger issue than the money is. Where, in fact, I attended the Rebel Road Trip Tuesday of this week, and it's the thing Pete Golding pointed out is, number one challenge we have is retaining the players once we get them here.
Yeah, you're always recruiting your own team, and that's very tough. I would say this: if you're a coach and you're not really happy about your roster, you're really happy about the transfer portal because you can get bad players out and you can bring better players in.
Yeah.
And I also think that NIL has simplified recruiting. You and I both know that players have always been getting money. That's not a thing. But it's simplified it now in that a lot of like 99% of the time, I'd say the best offer just wins. So if you want a guy, you gotta, if your finances are in order, make the right offer, and you'll get him. So I think that's simplified that. But in the same way, I think the retention piece of that is you have guys, they're free agents every season.
Yeah.
So you bring in a guy, and he's not happy about something, he's gone the next day. And that's what coaches want to fix. And I think you're starting to see some of that with what's going on with Ole Miss and LSU right now with this potential buyout where Ole Miss had language in their contract with these players. LSU's going to have to pay them this money. And collectives are going to have to make decisions like, do we want to do this and it's going to cost us an extra $500K, extra $1 million maybe? Or would we rather go get a different player that we're going to pay and we don't have to pay that? It's going to make they need some normalcy. You can't do anything in this life without a contract in sports.
Right.
You got to have contracts, and you can't have every year being free agency over and over and over again.
Well, what's kind of surprising to me, Brian, and I ask you to clarify, but there's more free agency at the college ranks than at the professional level, right? They figured out a way to rein that in somewhat.
100%, because you sign a 4-year deal, you can't just wake up and at the end of the first year and go, I don't want to play here anymore. You can request a trade, but the team's not beholden to you for that. They can just be like, no, you show up, we're paying you. Yeah. And part of that is because the players in the NFL, and there's so fewer players in the NFL than in college football, right? I mean, talking about 30 teams with a 45-man roster versus 130 teams with an 85-man roster. It's a staggering number. The players in the NFL have collectively bargained. They have agreed to whatever they whether they like it or not. In a personal case, the players have collectively bargained that. You don't have that in college football. Nobody has represented the athletes. That's one of the things that when Trump had that colloquium or that meeting, whatever you want, there weren't any athletes there. And I thought that was a mistake by the president, that you needed somebody there to speak for the student athlete, because they're the ones who are going to have to agree to, are you going to become an employee? Are you going to be allowed to unionize? I feel like we're coming to that point, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. All right, so you've got Jeff Lebby up today, right, for Mississippi State?
Yes, Jeff Lebby will be here. He will be sitting right here.
Okay.
We will have no problems getting Jeff Lebby here. I'll tell you that much for sure.
What do you expect?
And I expect to hear a coach that feels like he's going to be successful this year. Right. That he feels like he's got enough pieces in place to take another step forward. They move forward from year 1 to year 2. Can they move forward from year 2 to year 3? Be potentially a top 25 team at the end of the season? I think you're going to hear a coach who's excited about his quarterback, who's excited about some of the new additions to his coaching staff. And I'm hopeful to hear a coach that at year 3 is just comfortable being the head coach at Mississippi State. Is just going to be comfortable in his own skin. I thought yesterday Pete Golding was very comfortable being Pete Golding. I'd like to see Jeff Lebby have some of that as well.
You know, I agree. Attending the event as I did Tuesday night, the first time I really got to hear him speak as a head coach. He sounded like a head coach, totally different than as a coordinator.
But at the same time, he sounded like Pete Golding.
Well, I agree. It was himself.
Yeah, and you know, I felt like a few years with State with Zach Arnett, the guy you had behind the podium as a head coach didn't sound like the Zach Arnett I had gotten to know over the few years.
Makes sense.
So for Mississippi State, Jeff Lebby just being comfortable in his own skin, comfortable with what he's doing and building his program, that's what Mississippi State needs to hear from him today.
Yeah, and before we go, the players detect that, don't they, Brian? They sense 100%. That. And then
they sniff out a fraud.
Exactly.
Quick. So, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Brian Hadad, co-host of Sports Talk Mississippi and Thunder and Lightning.
Gerard Gibert, my favorite Rebel.
I love it. We got to make sure Richard knows that now. Appreciate it, Brian. Great job.
We'll print the shirts.
From Tampa, Florida, SEC Media Days. SuperTalk Mississippi, Sports Talk Mississippi, all over it for you, folks. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Now it Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We've got Representative Steve Lott on the program coming up next. He's going to talk about the oil and gas industry. He worked a long time in that industry, knows a great deal about it, and tracks it rather diligently. So looking forward to him joining us. But looking at the markets today, not a good day for your investments. The NASDAQ really taking a beating. It's down 655 points. That's 2.5%. And the Dow also down. It in negative territory. Your funny money's down $1,100 today. The Dow's down 600 points as well. That's because of the escalation of the war in the Middle East, and that's causing two things that are making traders jittery and causing them to hit the sell button. One, there's concerns about inflation because the price of oil, Brent crude, up to $100 today. I said the other day, Rhino, man, I hope we don't get to the 100 handle. Here we are. And West Texas Intermediate, usually a few bucks less per barrel than the Brent C version. It is up $5 a barrel today, $92. That's because it looks like we've got an escalation of the war in Iran. The president certainly is saber-rattling big time, and those fools are saber-rattling back, which is a problem. And that is causing a disruption to the flow of oil through the Strait. And that's got traders thinking two things. One, this war just doesn't seem to be coming to an end soon. Two, when the price of oil is elevated the way it is and increasing the way it is, that's going to drive inflation. So traders say, inflation, bad for the market. That means the Fed may say, let's raise interest rates. The 10-year Treasury today up considerably and when you see that, that means that traders feel that they got to get more money for those investments because of inflation, because they sense inflation on the horizon. And that's just causing problems. The volatility index over 3 today, which is just mind-boggling. That's a big number. The S&P also down. So bottom line is war interferes with the flow of oil. Despite what the greenies in this country say, fossil fuels are essential for human existence. They're pretty critical to our world. And when there's the concerns about the supply of it, and that drives the price up, everything uses, as you guys know, petroleum and fossil fuels. And so the big problem with the markets is concerns about inflation driven by energy. So we just got a good inflation report where we saw May to June we had disinflation. Actually, we had deflation from May to June, disinflation year over year. Deflation means prices came down. Disinflation means prices rose at a smaller rate. So we had that dynamic in June. My concern now is that with the price of oil on the rise as it is here in late July, that we're going to see a reverse of those good inflation numbers for the month of July. And I don't know what that's going to do to the Fed. They're certainly in a pickle, but the markets don't like interest rate increases. They'd really like to see interest rate decreases. Folks are getting a bit weary of this, there's no doubt, and this is going to have an impact, I believe, on the midterm elections. Voters are talking about change, and this just seems to be always the case to me, Rhino, is that when do you ever say people are happy? I'm happy with the way it is, let's continue it. It just seems like that when they're always upset about something, and the natural reaction is, well, let's change it. If it's not good now, let's change it. I think that would be a mistake, certainly to hand the Democrats the House, and God forbid the Senate. We'd still have the firewall of anything super bad happening. We still got the White House for 2 years. But you know what's going to happen if the Democrats take the House, and the prospects for that are looking even more likely. They're just going to be obsessed with impeaching the president every day. That's what's going to happen. And he's going to be fending that off on a daily basis, and we're just going to have a bunch of rhetoric going back and forth, and nothing really happening to the benefit of the American people is what my concerns are. Now, here's what some polls say recently. This is Fox News polls, so it's not like they're going after and finding the most left-wing nutcases they can. But the polls show that voters are unhappy. They want change. This, I thought, was an interesting question coming from Fox, an interesting issue put on the table. That is income inequality. I'm shocked that Fox put that out there. And they say, well, Democrats can better handle income inequality. Well, sure they can, because their idea of addressing income inequality is just to tax the ever-loving snot out of people at the higher end of the income strata and take that money, skim some off the top, and send it back out the door through government programs. That's their idea. Use taxes to address the disparity of income, which is a huge mistake. And then the number two issue, health care. Number 3, inflation. Number 4, the economy. Now, all that, to me, is kind of related. And then number 5, foreign policy. Republicans holding an advantage over crime, while government spending, Democrats and national security Republicans are more evenly divided. On immigration, the Republican Party has an 8-point edge in April. Now Democrats are preferred by 1 point. Preferred on immigration. That's shocking. Like, what do you want? The border is essentially closed. I would say that's probably the most visible change from Biden to Trump is that.
I think we should go back to what I was saying on these airwaves before Trump was sworn in for his second term, when immigration was a major point of his victory.
Right.
That society at large is going to have to harden its heart a bit and to not buy in to all the nonsensical bleeding heart BS that was going to come out with deportations. What has happened in the time since Trump was sworn in regarding deportations?
Yeah, exactly. But that's they try to emotionalize that issue rather than think clearly about what's actually happening and going on. Haven't we seen enough crime committed?
Both sides throw around nonsensical talking points about immigration.
I agree.
Like the talking point that Thomas likes to bring up about, 80% of new net jobs went to, and he tries to say it's H-1B visas.
Wrong.
If you look at the actual study, it's foreign-born nationals.
Right.
That
Totally
includes
wrong.
green card holders, that includes naturalized citizens born outside the country, and the number's less than 5 million. When we're talking about an economy dealing with more than 100 million illegal aliens and more than 100 million unemployed, 5 million doesn't make a hill of beans difference when you're talking about that equation.
And he's obsessed with it, though. To him, that's like his top issue, and it's like nowhere to be found among the issues of voters. Nobody's thinking about that. Nobody cares. Only him. And the displacement of white-collar workers, false. Not happening. That's not what's happening whatsoever. So, no, Thomas, you're not. I'm not even going to read what you sent, man. You're wrong, though. I'm telling you. At this point, I'd rather have JD as president. So if he does get impeached, not the worst thing. I'm concerned about JD. His stance on being anti-merit, anti-free market to some extent, anti-Milton Friedman, even took shots at Margaret Thatcher. That concerned me. Really did. Should concern everybody. I think at this point, my preference, if we're talking about the two top prospective candidates for president 28, I think my preference would be Marco Rubio, honestly. Just think he's just a little more stable in his thinking. We're coming right back with Representative Steve Lott.
From the Seabrook.
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Thanks for joining us today. We welcome now Representative Steve Lott. He serves in Mississippi's House of Representatives, represents District 107. That incorporates George and Stone counties. Representative Lott, good to see you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, good morning, Gerard. Glad to be here.
So did you change your mind about your background? You sent me what you were going to use as your background yesterday. It looks
Yeah, I know. Now, I figured I'd just kind of tone it down a little bit.
Okay.
I'm trying to get, it's too much sunshine glaring in it. But anyway.
Before we get started, you were telling me that the state of Mississippi, and certainly the southern part where you're located, we kind of dodged a bullet with this storm that went through, huh?
Oh, most definitely. Watched that. Of course, everybody was watching that high-pressure heat dome we talk about that just gives us all this stifling heat, but it actually kept that storm kind of torn down and pushed out there, because if that wouldn't have been there, I had a strong feeling that could have possibly given us a lot of trouble this week.
Yeah, man, we don't need it. That's for sure. All right, well, let's talk about the industry that you worked for a long time in, and that is the petroleum industry, the oil and gas industry. We were just sharing earlier that with the war being escalated in the Middle East, we got more disruptions in the Strait, and oil traders are sending oil upward significantly today. We got Brent crude hovering right around $100 a barrel, and I just saw on the screen in the studio, West Texas Intermediate, it's up $5.46 today to almost $93. So kind of going in the wrong direction for people that want to see price at the pump go down. What do you think?
Yeah, when this first started, I know you and I were talking about it, and they were still getting about 65% traffic through the Strait while that was initially started. Of course, you know how it's been going back and forth with they'll do a little bit, then they'll stop and everything, but it just keeps gradually going. Last I looked this morning, it's down to about probably 8% utilization going through the Strait. So that's just causing everybody to just, they're still writing insurance premiums for people to transport through there, but I'm sure nobody's taking a risk. It's probably too expensive, and the ships are starting to stack up again there. So I guess everybody's just waiting to see now. I've been looking at, of course, if you get an inflection when this price goes up, you'll see it at the pump. I think it's went up 10, 15, 20 cents the last week or two, something like that. Of course, you're getting these high demand areas where a lot of travel's going on. You see it up closer to $4. So we'll be rolling out of summer demand and summer blend summer blend will be tailing off pretty soon, but the summer demand will end about Labor Day, and it'll drop some, but as long as these prices stay up, I'm just not going to wouldn't see much relief below $3 right now. So we're hoping. I'm like you. We're hoping this thing they'll find somewhere to get some kind of settle this out a little bit. I don't know when though. It is so unpredictable. You know how they'll ceasefire and then next week they're trying to, they're fighting in the ceasefire, and it's kind of hard to tell. I'm sure the market's just having a tough time with that, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, can't get clarity of information, and once reports are issued, announcements made from either our side or their side, I think there's a reaction to that, and then it like you say, it gets blown up a couple of days later, and so I think the confidence level in the data that traders are using for their decisions is not very high at this point, and I mean I don't know that I've seen this kind of volatility in such a compressed period of time. We go up, and a couple of weeks ago we were all celebrating. Look, man, we're getting back down to almost where it was in February before the attacks, and then boom, here we are back up to $100 a barrel.
Well, that just shows how much that Strait of Hormuz is a very vital piece of the global supply, and of course we see Iran definitely using it as leverage against us.
Yeah.
Of course, there's pressure on both sides to keep a flow going, but this is going on. Now, I was actually I was curious about alternative routes, which there's some ships have been going. They've kind of got like a 2-lane through the Strait, the south side being near Oman. A few been going through, but there's still risk of getting bombed. But I see they're actually Saudi Arabia and UAE, and I think Iraq are kind of expediting some projects to get some pipelines in. They've been talking about it for a while. I think they're getting to the point where they feel like this, who knows when this is going to be settled out or if it'll get settled out.
Yeah.
Now, the capacity they could do if they get these pipelines in, it gets you roughly about half or a little better than half of what they get through the Strait now. But you talk about a couple of years out trying to get that done. So we'll see what happens.
So the last I checked, Representative Lott, total global oil consumption was right around 100 million barrels a day, about 20 million here in this country. But some 20% of that flows through the Strait. So, I mean, that's a big chunk.
Yeah, and one thing we don't talk about a lot of either is the liquefied natural gas LNG, because there's a lot of it there. We're trying to get crude through there, but there's a lot of LNG in that area that has to get to Asia and Europe, and that's really put a pinch on them with that too. So
yeah, I didn't think about that. Now, so are you seeing any efforts in the region for the producers to figure out a way to circumvent shipping oil on tankers through the strait, just using pipelines or other routes? Are there alternatives?
there's not a lot of alternatives. That's why these countries, like I said earlier, UAE and Saudi are escalating their projects to get some pipeline in, and the non-OPEC countries have actually built up their production a little bit to kind of fill the gap a little bit. We're still a long ways from where we need to be at. So it's everybody kind of adjusts to it a little bit, and of course we've got winter. It'll kind of demand with the gasoline will slack off just a little bit, but then, it's just a challenge. I just don't know. And you were talking about the midterms there. It's just going to be a lot. It's going to be a big factor in the midterms coming up, whether this gets settled out and things come down. I would suspect, because what people are having to spend money on impacts how they vote.
Yeah,
we've seen it more than once.
No doubt about it. So the refinery in Pascagoula, any report from them? I know you still stay in touch with those folks to some extent. What are they saying? How's this affecting their business?
They get very little from that area, but they got supply that they can get and not be reliant on that region to get their crude oil supply in. So, yeah, we can get supply like we need just because it's a global market and global commodity like that. We have to deal with the price that goes across the board. Yeah. Okay. Well, I didn't know if there was any expectation of perhaps reducing schedules or operations, because it's a pretty big part of the economy, certainly for the state, and definitely in that part of the state. Yeah, just the only thing you have to watch is the price stays up on the finished products there. Demand will eventually, people will kind of slow down. Now, I've seen a steady, I think I've mentioned to you, I can go up just up to Highway 98, Chevron, just kind of watch the traffic coming through there, and they're still steady going up and down 98, going in and out of Florida and wherever they're going. So it's that slow people down, but eventually they probably will, because it's just costing more to travel and enjoy the summer right now. Yeah. All right. From a legislative perspective, I know you're part of the committee, co-chair, right, of the Government Efficiency Committee, and I know you guys have had some meetings. Anything you can report to us on that? Yeah, we had a really good first hearing. We actually had one scheduled for last Thursday. Of course, a special session. We had to reschedule that one, but got a lot of great ideas from some of the directors from the agencies about ways we could do better, which I know we always talk about, and I think like a business mind looking at things like that, but the way things have we got statute there that kind of gets in the way. So you got to figure out a way to work through some of that. So I think some of our primary focus areas are like procurement procedures, and just shared resources. That's where we kind of focused it in on that. Yeah. Well, it makes sense, because a lot of times the agencies, as you know, they're somewhat siloed, and there are probably ways that they could collaborate, share resources, and maybe improve efficiencies and save a little money for the taxpayers. Right. Yeah. Love it. Representative Steve Lott represents the state of Mississippi's District 107 in the Mississippi House. Also, folks, the lead guitarist in the House band. We enjoy that for sure. Appreciate it, Steve. Thanks for coming on, man. Yes, sir. Thank you. Coming right back in the Element Well studio.
Are you in your element? This is Jeremy Nelson, your host for Element Wealth Radio, every Sunday from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. and Wednesday from 9 to 10 a.m. right here on SuperTalk Jackson 97.3. Element Wealth Radio, helping you complete your financial picture.
At Fillmore Buick GMC, we strive to make buying your next vehicle easy and take care of you long after you drive off the lot. That means upfront and honest pricing, doing everything we can to make the time you spend in the dealership as short or as long as you need. It means we understand that purchasing a vehicle is more than just a transaction for you. We want you to enjoy the experience as much as we appreciate your business. Find your next Buick, GMC, or pre-owned vehicle at FillmoreBuickGMC.com. Fillmore Buick GMC. You drive everything we do.
Discover Jackson's best lunch secret at 4th and Gold Sports Cafe, Tuesday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Meat, 2 sides, and a drink for under $13. Full menu, and don't forget happy hour, Monday through Friday, 3 till 7 p.m. 4th and Gold Sports Cafe, 5100 I-55 North Frontage Road in Jackson.
Hey, this is Bob. Just walked into ESI Supply. James, y'all are the headquarters for cut-resistant gloves.
Yes, sir. We carry multiple brands, Radians, MCR, and Hex Armor. We got cut-ready gloves from A1 to A9, coated and leather, with impact and without.
ESI Supply is your protection headquarters. Stop by and see them at 111 Aerosmith Drive in Richland, or give them a call at 601-933-4910. That's 601-933-4910, or online at esisupply.net. That's esisupply.net.
In life and in business, one thing is certain. Change. That's why Pilium Corporation is ready to keep you ahead of the curve on ever-evolving technology, critical for your company's security and growth. To that end, the Pilium team offers IT support and security and forensics, plus cloud services and networking, mobile communications, body cams, in-car video systems, and real-time crime center technology. Pileum.com. Smart people, smart business, smart solutions.
I'm Griffin Ray with the SuperTalk Agri-News Network, and here's your morning ag report. The price of gasoline continues to be a conversation on farms statewide, with the national average for regular fuel back over $4 a gallon and diesel well over $5, erasing any relief at the pump. Lillian Wu explains why the surge is happening.
The latest run-up driven by escalating tensions and attacks between the U.S. and Iran, as well as the drop in Russia's refining capacity.
Diesel needed to power heavy farm machinery, run irrigation systems, and operate transport vehicles is at $4.89 a gallon in Mississippi. That's a 4-cent overnight surge and over $1.50 higher than this time last year. Keep up with the latest news in agriculture by going to supertalk.fm or signing up for our free newsletter at supertalk.fm/newsletter. That's your morning ag report. I'm Griffin Ray with the SuperTalk Agri-News Network.
Hello, I'm Sean Tyndall, Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Public Safety. Since 2021, Mississippi has seen a 25% reduction in fatalities involving crashes with commercial motor vehicles. Many of those crashes could have been avoided. DPS, through its MHP's Motor Carrier Unit and the Commercial Transportation Enforcement Division, is partnering with Big Rig Truckers to conduct safety checks across our state for the Trooper and Truckers Safety Initiative. The Department of Public Safety and the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration are working together to keep our highways safe for everyone. Thank you, and drive safely.
Hi, I'm Jake Mangum. A strong team means finding value. That's why you can always trust Farm Bureau to be there for you and your family. With more than 100 years of service and loyalty, our new Farm Bureau Health Plan offers affordable health care powered by the Blue Cross Blue Shield Network. Members have saved over 40% off their current ACA premiums. Get started today by contacting your local agent and seeing what plan works best for you. Time to go with the home team. Time to go with Farm Bureau.
SportsTalk Mississippi, Magnolia State's #1 sports show. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
We interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge.
Huge news.
Huge news. Huge.
You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk Mississippi.
2, 3, 4.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. So, yesterday, before we went off the air, of course, we talked about Alphabet scheduled to release its results, its quarterly results, after the bell yesterday, and they did. And they had a good quarter, but investors, they sort of parsed some of the outlook provided by management. Revenues of $119 billion for the quarter. Man, that is a 24% increase year over year for the same quarter ending June 30th. That is incredible. They made $40 billion of operating income. That's a 34% increase. But get this, they had some investments. They did pretty well with these investments, Rhino, generating $98 billion of investment gains in the quarter for a net income of $112 billion. Again, $98 billion of that coming from the company's investments, not from its core operating business. Google search, of course, YouTube ads. It's hard to believe they generated $63 billion on Google search. That's advertising. So, you know, I've talked before about how we love to blast the health insurance companies because nobody likes paying for health insurance. It's expensive. It's out of pocket. But again, I point out, and I'm not defending health insurance companies here. I get it. Everybody loves to hate them. But the total profit for the top 7 insurers for the year last year was about $42 billion. United Healthcare at the top of the list at about $20 billion there. Well, think about this. Google made $40.25 billion of operating income. And I think it's because we don't get mad at Google because we don't pay them anything except the advertisers. The average person is pretty accustomed. You call it the Google box all the time. We're pretty accustomed to just, boom, going straight to the search engine, typing something in, and getting results. It's pretty good. It's pretty powerful, pretty effective, pretty useful. Who in the heck out there doesn't use it? Not many. But the beauty of the model is that's a pretty valuable service that's free to the end user. It's not to the advertiser. That's where all their money comes from. So basically Google, YouTube, they own YouTube. And sometimes that can be annoying, but the good news is you can either pay a subscription and bypass all the ads, or you don't have to. Depends on how long you're on the platform. You know, over a certain period of time, if you're on it too long, they force you to watch an entire ad. But in general, 30 seconds, you can say, skip it. I'm ready to go to whatever the content. But that's what makes it free. The fact that you have to endure a little pain to go through and consume the ad, if you will, that's what makes all that free.
That's an entire business model of a whole sector of mobile gaming.
Okay.
Is you watch an ad and your little character or army or farm or furry kitty cat or whatever the heck you're playing with, after you watch the ad, you get a bonus for them.
Okay. Well,
it's literally built into the gameplay.
I didn't know that. But I'd say that's a brilliant model, honestly. That's pretty smart. Well,
I would say the brilliant model are the ones that come out that are basically the same game that don't have ads and sell themselves on not having ads.
Well, that's true. It's true. It was interesting, but the markets were upset a little bit about the amount of money, the free cash flow. Well, they had a negative free cash flow, and that's just because they're spending a ton of money building out their AI infrastructure and offering. So for right now, they're going through a build-out phase, and that resulted in a negative cash flow. And the investors are still, they're kind of taking a wait-and-see attitude. They're a little nervous. And then, boom, overnight, we have we have an escalation of the war essentially in the Middle East, and that drove oil prices higher, and of course that's got fueling a sell-off today overall. But I found that fascinating, their quarterly report, but their revenue, that just blew me away. They say that's driven by their cloud and their cloud AI business is just on fire. American innovation, the engine of America innovation, it is absolutely clicking on all cylinders. It's a wonderful thing. Fox News, SuperTalk News is next, and then 2 hours of middays. More of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello? You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday Eve.
That's right. We are in the Element Wealth Studio. Are you thinking about or planning for retirement? Do you have a plan? Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. So, Secretary of State Marco Rubio just reported that Iran is not, I repeat, not ready to make a deal. So, that I'm sure is information that is being heard around the world and certainly impacting markets and the price of oil, etc. Here at home. Since the Iran conflict, Brent crude is up $30 a barrel, 43%. On the ceasefire text line, Paula Meridian says, I know people are fussing over this rising gas prices right now, but from what I'm seeing, if this works out, the plan he's working on with Saudi Arabia and Iraq could really improve everything in the Middle East. Be patient. It was worse under the Democrats. Oh, I hear you, and I agree, Paul. Honestly, I'm not optimistic about this deal with Saudi Arabia. It hinges on normalization of relations with Israel. And Saudi Arabia says that ain't happen unless a Palestinian state is recognized. So at this point, I'd say it's a long shot. I applaud the president for attempting it, but even nuclearizing Saudi Arabia, I still don't think that accomplishes the goal of denuclearizing Iran. And I just would like to see a plan. How are we going to get there? It is of some concern that the report has been that their military has been decimated, yet they have enough capability to launch strikes in the region and shut down the strait. So maybe they still have some remaining capability. The other thing is you ain't got to have multi-billion-dollar ships to cause problems anymore. I think that's something we're learning from this conflict is very inexpensive assets and hardware can do a lot of damage. And you don't have to be a big rich country like the United States to do that. By the way, speaking of which, looks like our House passed a spending measure that does increase defense spending about $95 billion to $1.15 trillion. First time it's ever been north of $1 trillion. So we're going certainly in the direction of increasing spending in the discretionary category, not decreasing. But that is headed to the Senate, but it's got the SAVE Act in it, and so it's thought that it's going to die there. I think that it was a political play to get Democrats on the record, honestly, on where they stand on those measures. But it is headed over to the Senate. I'm not optimistic we're going to get anything out of the Senate to get this thing to the president's desk for signature. So I guess they'll keep working on it seems like we always do. They'll keep fighting about funding the government, which runs out of money at the end of September. And then the other one that's interesting, actually, the SAVE Act, by the way, is not, pardon me on that, it's not in the National Defense Authorization Act. That's the spending bill for the Department of War. It is actually incorporated in the bill that would limit stock trading for Congress. So that did pass the House yesterday. Democrats opposed it because Republicans included the voter ID requirement. And that was the political ploy to get Democrats on the record as opposing legislation that would limit stock trades because they didn't want to support the SAVE Act. So that's how we roll in Washington, I guess, isn't it, Rhino? We just kind of play these political games knowing that all you're doing is getting votes on the record that you can use in the coming election as opposed to getting serious about passing legislation that the American people would like to see passed. That's kind of the way we roll. It passed 232 to 198, mostly on a party line vote, headed to the Senate. All Democrats opposed the measure after Republicans inserted the SAVE Act. Now, I got to tell you, this measure that bans stock trading, it's a bit confusing. It doesn't require members to liquidate their holdings. In fact, they can still sell what they own at the time the legislation goes into effect, should it be signed into law. It's a little confusing. You would you'd have to report, I think, there's something about some reporting requirements whenever you act and you sell these holdings, whenever you process those current holdings. But with respect to future trades, you can't do that. It says those who violate the rule would be obliged to pay a $2,000 fee or 10% of the investment's value, whichever is greater, as well as any net gains from the transaction. It says it would require that at least a week before a lawmaker's spouse or dependent sells a covered investment, they must file public notice of the intent to sell, which would be published online. Boy, would that ever be fun, wouldn't it? You start talking about real-time, in advance publishing of members' intent to sell stock they own. People would have a field day with that, wouldn't they? Oh, my gosh. The Stop Insider Trading Act, that's the name of the legislation. So it's themselves, their spouses, and their children that would be banned from purchasing certain investments. Generally speaking, it's stock in a publicly traded company. Some investments, index funds and widely held securities like that stop short of individual stocks.
So Rokana's kids can still own their golf courses?
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point. Yeah. So
elementary school age kids, by the way.
That's exactly right. He's worth about what, $30 million or something like that, I think. Yeah. So a lot of people wanted more stringent stock trading prohibitions for lawmakers, but the Democrats wanted to extend this over to the executive branch. It does not prohibit the president or their family from engaging in these stock transactions. So it allows members to still purchase private stocks, keep public stocks that they already own, and act on legislative matters that directly increase the value of their stocks. And so there's some members that are not happy, feeling like the legislation stops short of really accomplishing anything. The president, by the way, his financial disclosures show that his investment accounts made over 21,000 trades last year. Wow, totaling between $600 million and $1.86 billion. And a lot of lawmakers, of course, have come under scrutiny and criticism for their various stock moves. Representative Sarah Jacobs, a California Democrat who sits on the House Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committee, she disclosed, in accordance with law, a partial sale of her Qualcomm stock, a company that's, of course, involved in the semiconductor industry. And it's thought that our China export policy was something she knew about in advance and traded on that basis. In May, she traded some $500,000 worth of stock in the company. That's interesting. So I'm not sure if this thing is going to get through the Senate. All indications are that it is not. Even some Republicans have some concerns with the legislation, talking about in the Senate. It does seem kind of weak to me, honestly. Representative Thomas Massey, no surprise, he really put the wood on his party for tacking on the voter ID requirement. He said, look, this is just all political. You're not really serious about banning stock trading. You're just trying to get Democrats on the record here for political gain. So he said if we wanted to really ban stock trading for members, we would offer a standalone bill that would garner a large bipartisan majority. We're taking a break right here. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
So, I know a lot of people in this country feel like that there's deck is stacked, limited opportunity, and we have this income inequality, and they're just don't have a lot of faith in the system. So I got to tell you, I caught an interview this morning on the Business Channel, and this was the CEO of a company that is in the biotechnology business. She was 30, and she has created an agricultural technology company dedicated to solving the problem of food waste. It's a huge problem. Has been. I could not believe how articulate she was at 30 years old. I'm thinking back, gee, was I that smart when I was 30? I don't think so. I couldn't believe it. And guess what? A female, right? Because don't we always hear the females don't have a chance? So she said that she was inspired by the idea that 40%, this is her data, of food is wasted globally before it is consumed. 40%. Even if it's 20, that's a lot, right? So she studied molecular biology at the University of Pennsylvania. And she said, she realized as part of that study that the bottleneck in the food supply chain is the lack of information, of data regarding produce ripeness and shelf life. Now, I didn't realize this. You probably know. I know you keep up with stuff like this. She said that without this technology, without this data, we literally rely on human eyes and guesswork, guesstimates. And she talked about, and I may mess this up, she talked about apples. That apples, when they're harvested, they're stored before they're shipped. And you want to keep them, I know my mother used to talk about this, keep your apples refrigerated, but keep them out of the air. That's why you put them in the little fruit compartments in the refrigerator, right? Isn't that the purpose there? So she said in a deoxygenated environment would make the apples last longer. But she said right now it's humans to just figure out, okay, ship these, throw these away, move these here, and it's just guesswork. And so she has invented her company, super high-tech, Internet of Things, IoT-enabled infrastructure to monitor the produce. She calls it biosensing hardware. She says the sensors can sniff and measure plant hormones, such as ethylene, that fruits exude as they ripen. I certainly didn't know that. I mean, I've never studied that. You're shaking your head. You probably understood that. So she said they use, you ready for it? You knew this was coming. Machine learning, AI-connected software to analyze that data to predict exactly when the produce will achieve peak ripeness. Takes the guesswork out of the supply chain. So it instructs the packers, the suppliers, the retailers on the best times to ship and sell and present specific batches of produce, significantly cutting down on waste. The company reports that they, using their technology, has analyzed more than 1.5 billion pounds of produce. Produce don't weigh a lot. 1.5 billion pounds is a lot. They claim that they've saved over 40 million pounds of fruit from rotting. That's just cool. I just thought that who would have thought? And this, because she was studying, I don't know what possesses one to study, what I say, molecular biology. I'm sure that's highly specialized. I would think, would that be something that you would study to possibly enter the medical profession or maybe research for medicine? Yeah. Well, but this young lady's 30 years old, created this company, solving a human problem, using the tools. You know, I told you before, my belief is we have income disparity because some people like this young lady say, wow, I have all these tools. I recognize this problem. I'm going to figure out how to use these tools to create more tools to solve a problem. And she'll probably get wealthy doing it, and people will freak out. That's exactly what will happen. Pay no attention to the fact that she is creating technology that addresses and solves a massive problem, which is food waste. This is just unbelievable. And this is American innovation. This is human innovation. But I got to tell you, I was blown away at just how smart and articulate and how comfortable she was. I mean, this is not some nerd you got to stick the work under the door to do, right? No, she did very well on camera. I was proud to be an American, just watching her, thinking this is the country we've created that allows a 30-year-old to create something like this, to solve a huge problem in our country. And again, I know the anti-data center folks won't like it. Using data centers and artificial intelligence. Impossible without it. Not replacing human work, augmenting, empowering, enabling, improving. That's what's going on here. Catherine Sizov is her name. S-I-Z-O-V, by the way. And their company is Strela, S-T-R-E-L-L-A, biotechnology. Unbelievable. So, once again, if you think that even old industries. You could argue that agriculture is the oldest industry on the planet. Got to eat, right? So here we have an industry that's been around since humans have inhabited the earth, using this modern technology to serve society. And it's happening right here. And I'll say again, this couldn't happen in another country. I'm telling you. We were talking with Douglas Carswell yesterday at Mississippi Center for Public Policy. He, of course, a native of Great Britain. I just don't think you'd see it over there. They're so obsessed with so much other crap that they're dealing with and so many other problems. But this person here was able to use their education and putting it to good for society and now creating value for all of us. So I know maybe I'm going on a little too long, but this is an example of what's happening across our country every day that I don't think we recognize enough. But again, 30 years old, man. Just absolutely
There
incredible.
is one thing the UK has going for it, and it's ironic you were talking about apples because it involves apples.
Okay.
In the UK and in many European countries, they put off the spoilage of ripe apples and other produce through irradiation. They run the produce through a machine that irradiates it with a low dose of radiation, completely harmless, about the same level as the background radiation you experience on a daily basis. But with that radiation, it kills any worms, bugs, parasites, bacteria, any living thing within the apple that would cause spoilage once it ripened, to the point where they'll sit on the shelves for a month and still look perfectly ripe.
So why hasn't that been done in this country?
Because Jimmy Carter was a coward, and the entire American population for a generation or two became terrified of nuclear anything.
Okay. So to me, this sounds like what this young lady has invented solves that problem without the application of radiation. And so we get sort of the best of both worlds.
It solves the problem getting to the store. If you added a step of irradiation between there and the store would have less spoilage to throw away as well.
I get it, yeah. It would extend the life of it, yeah. I understand. Makes sense. Interesting. On the C Spire text line, somebody said, cut all that out. Go to Tucker Produce Farms in Vaden. Grow 100% of what they sell. I hear you, but man, I love to go to the local fruit stands as well, where a lot of that comes straight from the farms and the farmers markets. I know the Ag Commissioner's been promoting that, and I remember as a kid the farmers market down near the stadium was, I think it's West Street, if I'm not mistaken. That was always a treat when they would be, usually in the summer. You know, they'd be down there with their produce and harvest, and you could tell the difference, man, straight from the farm as opposed to out of the grocery store. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio.
From the Seabrook.com.
Properly set all controls before recording.
All systems go.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Walking through a party in the county jail. The prison band was there, they began to wail. The band was jumping and the joint began to swing. You should have heard this knocked out jailbird sing. Let it rock. Everybody let it rock. Everybody in the whole cell block was dancing to the jailhouse rock. Spider Murphy played his tenor saxophone. Little Joe was blowing on the slide trombone. The drummer boy from Illinois would crash, boom, bang. The whole rhythm section was a purple gang. Let it rock.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. Tim in Cleveland says, I wish people would realize that they should blame everything on Jimmy Carter. If he had done what he was supposed to do in 1978, we wouldn't have this problem. Yeah, that's why he's often thought of as the worst in history. And I think a lot of people maybe sort of changed their minds after Joe Biden. But I think both were
you can
dismal.
give the guy his kudos for a life well lived, and a lot of people helped through his efforts in philanthropy and charity after his time in the Oval Office, but his time in the Oval Office was disastrous for this country, and we're still paying the consequences.
Yeah. Yeah, that sure seems like it. Missed some opportunities, didn't make some key decisions. He just always seemed confused, like indecisive, not assertive, not confident in himself. And I do think that manifested in just poor performance overall. No doubt about it. Ben from Madison says, this situation in Iran seems to be heading towards a never-ending war unless we escalate. No doubt escalation will result in thousands, if not tens of thousands of casualties similar to that of the Iraq War. I'm still frustrated with this administration. I'm still frustrated this administration did all this without congressional approval. Yeah, and I think, Ben, your sentiments are indicative of those of many in the country. I think from my perspective is, and I know Paula Meridian said, hey, be patient. This is going to be better. And I believe that, and I want that to be the case. I just don't see a path to getting there at this point. I wish there was a little more clarity on, again, if the goal is to rid Iran of its nuclear material and its ambitions, how do we measure that? Right now, they still got their enriched material, and we're 5 months into this thing. So where do we go from here? What's the next step? And it just seems like we keep trading threats back and forth. And now we're watching markets tank and oil go up considerably. We're approaching the midterms. The cost of everything is top of mind to voters, and they want to see. They always think, well, let's change it. I don't know how that would change it, honestly. They think that, by electing Democrats and giving them control of Congress, that would fix whatever ails them. I totally disagree. And I think that's incredibly short-sighted, but I get it. That's kind of the standard knee-jerk reaction in politics and into voters. Ronnie from Ackerman says, you should get an interview with that lady. It'd be great. That's a good idea, Ronnie. Maybe I'll check their corporate communications and get our content director to send them a note. I mean, she really was a delight. And it's just so good to see a young person that's, I just thought, way advanced for her age. And again, so invested in, so passionate about solving a problem. I just thought that was cool. I will be in your neck of the woods tomorrow, says Jody in Ocean Springs, and Saturday I'm competing in the USPA Mississippi State Powerlifting Championship. It's going to be held in Richland Saturday. Great, Jody. Good luck to you on that. Let us know how it goes. Sounds like pretty cool. Iran has Trump by the balls on the ceasefire text line. Well, it certainly seems like they have enough capability to cause problems at this point. And I think the biggest problem is, and the president knows this, you're dealing with unreasonable, irrational, lying people that don't have any regard for human life, even the human lives of their countrymen, of their citizens. That just makes it super difficult to get anything done. I think that's why Secretary Rubio, again, we shared that with you earlier on the program, said, yep, they're not ready to make a deal. So, in addition, we were talking about the Fox News poll, kind of what's top of mind to voters. This poll just conducted last week. Favorable views of capitalism and socialism. So positive views of capitalism trending downward, views of socialism mostly steady. Looking at the chart here showing the favorability of the two systems from February 2019 through July 2026. Capitalism sits at about 50%. It was about 58% in February 19, sitting at about 50% in July, the present day. Whereas socialism, 25% in February, it had gone up to as much as 32% in 21, sitting at about 30% present day. Capitalism versus socialism. Of course, by an 11-point margin, more Democrats have a favorable view of socialism, 52%, than capitalism, 41%. While by a 50-point margin, more Republicans have a positive view of capitalism, 61% versus 11% for socialism. Interesting. The other thing that's kind of interesting that's getting some buzz and attention is the possibility of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez being a candidate for president in 2028. She is leading in the New Hampshire poll. Now, it seems a little early for that. Let's see, Rhino, are they still the first? Weren't there some changes? I think that still is the first
They still
primary,
don't
right?
quite know exactly who's going to be the first to pull the trigger in the long line of dominoes to fall for the Democrat nomination, but South Carolina and Nevada are currently trading blows over it, and one elected official from South Carolina even insinuated that it would be a bad look for the Democrat Party to leave the black voters of South Carolina out in the cold in favor of the Hispanic voters from Nevada.
Oh, gosh. Of course, always got to play the the chess pieces, I should say, not the dominoes. So she's leading a field of possible candidates in a poll in New Hampshire, the Granite State. This is from the University of New Hampshire. That's amazing. She garnered 22% backing from the respondents, with former Transportation Secretary old Pete Buttigieg barely behind at 21%, and Senator Mark Kelly. He's also was included in the poll at 9%. Man. It's interesting
Be
that
happy running against any of those.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't show Gavin Newsom or some of the other names that have been mentioned. Don't see any mention of that in this particular poll. Hypothetical presidential markup. It was conducted July 15th to the 20th, so just last week.
In fairness, that has about as much strength to it as the preseason polls that get released the week after the national championship.
I agree. Just the fact that she's even among them and mentioned, I would say, is a bit shocking, but we shouldn't be. And we shouldn't underestimate either craziness in this country. So, but looking at just how in this Fox News poll, more Democrats say they are extremely motivated to vote in November than Republicans, 68 to 57%. More MAGA Republicans, 66% are extremely motivated than non-MAGA Republicans. I don't know how they go about defining themselves as non-MAGA or MAGA, but however that shakes out, 66% to 41%. Interesting. As far as being motivated, extremely motivated to get out there and vote. The sad part on the C Spire text line is the people that vote for her are dumber than she is. What's the old saying, Gerard? If you're under 30 and don't support Democrats, you have no heart. If you're over 30 and don't support Republicans, you have no brain. Should have waited till after the midterms to start this war on the C Spire text line. I think the concern was that they were getting pretty close to having some significant nuclear capability. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Polyumpa, Mississippi.
Check it out. Let's do this. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Smuggler's Blues. Welcome back, everyone. All you can think about is the hit TV series Miami Vice of the 80s. Crockett and Tubbs. I will say it was popular. It did captivate the audiences back in those days. Everybody, I think, was intrigued with the pair and what was it, a Lamborghini that he drove around in, I think, to kind of hide the fact that he was really a law enforcement officer or detective.
It was either a Lambo or a Ferrari.
Yeah. One of those expensive, exotic cars, for sure. Kind of fit the whole thing. Let's see what else we got. In the famous words of South Park, says Jason in Starkville, it's like choosing between a douche and a turd sandwich when it comes to elections. Yeah, I know a lot of people feel that. Mo says it was a fake Ferrari. Okay.
Yeah, kit car.
Kit car. Okay, gotcha.
Which I think they got in trouble for at some point.
That's right. They sure did. I do remember some sort of controversy around that. Yeah. Interesting. Well, let's see what else we got. One problem with the Iran narrative from the White House, this has been from Madison, is we were told in June of 25 their nuclear capabilities were, quote, annihilated and set back decades, but less than a year later we have to go to war to prevent them from developing a nuclear weapon. The messaging has been a disaster. We were also told this would only last a few weeks to maybe a month, yet here we are. 100 barrels of oil in November very well could result, $100 a barrel, I think is what he means to say, of oil could result in a Democrat-led Senate. That would be an absolute disaster scenario. Yeah, I hear you, Ben, and I think your concerns, your analysis there is consistent with that of many. And you also saw what some Republicans joined Democrats in legislation that would block the president's powers over the war. I don't know that that's going anywhere in the Senate. That was in the House. They've been trying to do that. But, I just, again, I hope, I pray for quick resolution. I do completely agree that every day that passes by and we get closer to the midterms, I think intensifies the problem. I've often thought that perhaps the most powerful political campaign promotion signage in our landscape is the price of gas that is hung out or on the street in front of every convenience store and gas station. That's as powerful as any big old billboard with somebody's face on it and the bullet points on why you should vote for them, more powerful than that. And so I do think people often make their decisions on that basis, just the basis of the price of gas alone. And of course, I think we all know that there is an energy component to everything, cost component to everything we buy. So It's not good to see the price of oil trending upward again as sharply as it is today, knowing that you're going to see that play out at the pump here as well in the not-too-distant future, and that will certainly cause more angst among the electorate. Will be an issue for sure. There is legislation, this gets talked about a lot, with respect to data centers. People want to ensure that these big hyperscalers, they foot the bill for the electricity they consume, and that those costs associated with provisioning more generation, more transmission are not borne by ratepayers and allocated to them in their electric bills. And so there is legislation that has bipartisan support in the House. But it's interesting to note that it's kind of a codification of the Ratepayer Protection Pledge, which the White House unveiled back in March, into law. But it's a little confusing in that it encourages states and public utility commissions, such as the Public Service Commission here in Mississippi, to adopt standards that govern how electricity users connect to the grid. So it doesn't appear to like just force the issue, but rather it kind of compels the states. You need to go make sure you have policies in place that ensure that these hyperscalers cover the cost of electricity that is being provisioned to support the demand for AI. Fox News, SuperTalk News, coming right back after that.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays on this
Friday Eve.
SEC Media Days is the unofficial start to the college football season, and Sports Talk Mississippi is in Tampa again today, where Jeff Lebby and Mississippi State will take center stage. It's the biggest event of the offseason, SEC Media Days, brought to you in part by Pearl River Resort, Cannon Motors, Mississippi Farm Bureau, and Trustmark Bank. And, of course, we heard from our good friend, the host of Sports Talk Mississippi and Thunder and Lightning, Brian Hadad. He called us earlier in the program. He kicked off the program today, direct from Tampa, Florida. And it's Jeff Lebby and the Mississippi State Bulldogs on the stage this afternoon, I believe, talking about their upcoming season. Man, that whole world of college football certainly upside down. North Carolina, I saw, Rhino, they're in talks with a private equity firm. I think it's Utah State also. Just a matter of time. I firmly believe this. I have for many years. That the whole kit and caboodle is going to be privatized. That's where I think it's headed. So, astronomers have discovered, I've never even heard of this before, an exomoon. That's the first known moon outside our solar system. Never heard of that before. So, we've been looking at stars forever. That's just our interest, our intrigue. You can't help but notice up in the sky, right? Distant planets are a bit of a different matter. We just recently, and I mean recently as in if you think about the length of time humans have inhabited the planet, it's back in the 90s when the first planet orbiting a star outside of our star, the sun, was discovered.
An exoplanet, yeah.
An exoplanet, right. So now what's been discovered are moons orbiting those planets, known as exomoons. That's pretty cool. Now, I didn't realize this till I came across this story and read it with interest that telescopes have spotted 6,000 exoplanets. 6,000. That's mind-boggling. When you think about our kind of focus on the other planets in our solar system, there's 6,000 that are around a different star.
What's really mind-boggling is that's the 6,000 we can see.
Oh, that's good. That's a good point. That's just what we have the technology to see today.
Because you got to remember, while we are orbiting around the sun within our solar system is orbiting around the center of the Milky Way and just an arm of the Milky Way galaxy.
Yeah. So we have, 8 in our solar system, I believe? 8 planets?
Yeah, I mean, the debate over Pluto being a planet is going to rage for another generation or two. But there are 8 accepted planets in the solar system.
That's right. That was a few years ago, right, where they sort of reclassified Pluto.
Over a decade now.
Okay. As a, what do they call it, a dwarf planet or something like that. Yeah. Okay, so 8 or 9, depending on, maybe you may be a solar system purist and say there's 9, right? But 6,000 that are around other stars? Because isn't it believed that every one of them orbits a star?
Yeah, I mean, that's usually, I don't know about all 6,000, but the ones I know of that have been discovered were discovered because they were observing a star and there was a dimming period. So they noticed, all right, something's passing in front of that star. We can do the math and figure out, is this on a regular orbit or is it something passing between us and that doesn't have any relationship to that star? Well, once they do the math and it's like, yeah, this passes by, it dims that star every 35 days. Then, all right, you've got something around that star. We're going to call it an exoplanet, and it orbits that star every 35 days.
Fascinating. So
that's what I meant about that 6,000 we can see.
Yeah.
It's not like looking up in the night sky and seeing the moon and then pulling out a telescope and seeing the craters of the moon. We're talking about light years away from the planet, and to break that down, a light year is the light from that star. If it's 1 light year away, you're looking a year into the past because the light from that star took a year to get to your eyes.
Right. It's just fascinating. So this exomoon, to your point, 71 light years away. That's just unbelievable.
So you're looking at light that originated in the 50s.
Now the astronomers say, well, that's next door by astronomical standards.
Yeah.
So it just makes you, I guess, realize just how massive the universe is, I guess.
I mean, the Milky Way galaxy alone is over 100,000 light years across.
That's incredible. 100,000. So this moon, by the way, is quite large. They estimate it to be as large as Jupiter. That's 11 times the size of planet Earth. That's just incredible. And the telescope they use, by the way, to discover this exomoon in Chile. It's located in Chile. I didn't even know this was a thing. A very large telescope. That's literally what they're called. VLT. Very large telescope. European Southern Observatory. That's the name of the organization in Chile that discovered it using a very large telescope, a VLT. Man.
And that's why you had the Hubble and now you've got the James Webb telescopes that were put into space by NASA, is because telescopes on Earth, terrestrial telescopes, are limited by their size and by the atmosphere. It takes a lot of investment and a lot of time and energy and a lot of costs going forward to build a large telescope, because the larger you make it, the more light you can take in, the more you can see, but you're still looking through the atmosphere.
Makes sense.
So when you're talking about a light source that's 10,000 light years away, you get too many atoms in the atmosphere between you and it, you can't really see it. But if you have a telescope in space like the Hubble or the James Webb, you're still limited by space. That's why those things are pretty big, but you're not looking through the atmosphere, so you're not having all of that refraction.
I got you.
Through the atmosphere, messing up the picture.
Just a clear view, essentially, without anything obstructing it. That's just incredible. Well, man, who knows? You know what's next? But maybe the most fascinating piece of data, I guess, I gleaned from that article was 6,000 exoplanets. That just blew me away. You just don't think about that. You think about the stars, but not the planets around the stars. That just shocked me. 6,000, big number, man. Well, let's see. Just past, this is on the C Spire text line, just past the data center site at Rayville, Louisiana. Supposedly 2,000 construction jobs, 200 full-time, great-paying jobs after. Man, that's fantastic. Yeah, there are 4,000 involved in the AWS campus construction here in Madison County. Already have 500 full-time equivalents. No H-1B visa people. Just want you to know that right now. That I did check that, by the way, with the company. Amazing. Future looks great for the South. Yep. I think we're looking at kind of a new wave of technology investment in the South. Now, get this, that goofy Kathy Hochul the governor, of course, of the great state of New York, is she just dumb or what? So, she signed this executive order banning data center construction in the state of New York. But yet, she is big time promoting solar projects. So you have concerns about consuming land with solar, or land with data centers, I should say. To power 100,000 homes, solar needs 55 times more acreage than nuclear. Now, I'm not surprised at that whatsoever. Nuclear, 25 acres will do it with natural gas, 110 acres of nuclear for 100,000 homes. Solar needs 6,150. So one of her concerns was consuming land building data centers, yet she, being the wokester that she is and leaning heavily into the climate change nut stuff, she's promoting this idea of more solar farms in the Empire State. Data centers require about 1/10 as much of the concrete footprint on the land than do solar farms. Man, idiots. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Hey, this is Bob.
Middays with Gerard Gibert. It is on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. So the Mars Wrigley Company said that it's going to lay off hundreds of workers as it relocates its headquarters from Newark, New Jersey to an expanded facility in Chicago. So apparently in the state of New Jersey, you've got to provide, if you're a company of a certain size and scale, you've got to provide a notification in advance to the state about plans to eliminate jobs. They call it a WARN. I don't know what the acronym stands for, all caps, WARN. They filed that with the state of New Jersey, indicating they will eliminate 307 jobs at their Newark headquarters by mid-October. That will be it for the company in the city of Newark, New Jersey. They are, of course, a division of Mars Incorporated, and their brands include M&M's, Snickers, Milky Way, Twix, and Skittle. Interesting. So looks like they're moving most of their operations into Chicago, just doing some consolidation. But that is, they also said that costs are soaring, and that is having a negative impact on demand. And there's also some just decrease overall in snack food consumption in the country, which is kind of interesting, but not surprising. So, Mars Wrigley. There's a surgeon at Johns Hopkins that is highlighting some of the breakthroughs produced by artificial intelligence. One of those we talked about a couple months ago, Rhino, the breakthroughs in pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic cancer, almost always a death sentence. I mean, one of the most deadly, and evolves with very little warning. Once detected, usually it's already pretty far along. But there's now some AI-powered tools that can recognize parents, according to the doctor, that would take patterns that would take physicians, he says, decades of experience to develop. Decades. And it's not only pancreatic cancer, but other cancer research being conducted at Johns Hopkins Health System. This is Dr. Peter Najjar, and he's been talking about this. He said it's also being used is AI to speed up drug development, make patient care more efficient, and says we still need more real-world evidence that's needed before its full impact can be measured. But he really highlighted this breakthrough involving pancreatic cancer, which would just be huge. This is something that, has confounded doctors, the medical community, because they feel so helpless. You come down with a diagnosis, and probably many listening, watching us today know somebody that has been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and unfortunately didn't make it too long after initial diagnosis. The American Cancer Society says that the 5-year survival rate, 13%. That's got to be among the lowest of all forms of cancer. But if it's detected before it gets outside the pancreas, that improves to 45%. And that's what this new technology supposedly will boost and will strengthen, is the ability to detect before it gets outside. There's a lot of folks you think about who succumbed to the disease. Steve Jobs of Apple, Patrick Swayze, Alex Trebek of Jeopardy fame. It took a toll on them really before their time, and it took them down ultimately. So researchers were able to identify signs of pancreatic cancer up to 16 months ahead of more traditional detection methods where humans would read scans and so forth. It's just incredible. Good news there, and just another example of how this new frontier of technology can serve society and serve humans. Meanwhile, Medicare is reporting that for every dollar that we invest as part of our payroll contributions, we get $4 out. And that's just because, as I say all the time, we keep inventing more care, new treatments, new drugs, new therapies. Everybody wants it. It costs money, but it is putting enormous pressure on the financial condition of the system. Along those lines, Fidelity, the big investment company, it released its 25th annual estimate of retiree health care costs, and it shows a significant jump from a year ago as medical care and related expenses become more expensive. It estimates that a 65-year-old, this is Fidelity, who retires in 2026 can expect to spend an average of $185,000 on health care and medical expenses throughout their retirement. That's a 7.5% increase from last year. So you can see why this is topping the list of concerns as we approach the midterms. I just haven't heard a lot of concrete proposals on how to address this issue. Certainly we've heard about the fraud that has been exposed in Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act and Medicare as well, and some potential solutions to that or some actions taken to address that, but really nothing that addresses the continue of the increase in cost of health care. Nothing really that I've seen coming out of Washington or at the state level that says, oh, yeah, that's going to drive down the price of health care. Haven't seen that whatsoever. Addressing the fraud in these government programs, and I've always liked to say wherever there's big government money, there's big government waste, fraud, and abuse, and that's certainly the case when it comes to Medicare, Medicaid, and the subsidies in the Affordable Care Act. And it's, I think, contrary to what is commonly believed. It comes more from the provider side. In the case of the ACA subsidies, it's the insurance brokers. It's unscrupulous and crooked insurance brokers. They really are crooked in that they're using rather deceptive methods to get people to sign up for something they don't even know they're signing up for. And it doesn't cost them anything because the government pays it, and it's going straight to the insurer. And many of these people, it's been found like half the people enrolled or something like that, or some relatively big number don't even file claims. So from that they probably don't know they have insurance. And these insurance companies are signing them up without their knowledge, kind of, again, leading them through it, tricking them into it. Boom, you're signed up. They send that to the federal government, and the federal government literally sends a check to the broker, the insurance company. That's the way the subsidies work. That's what was talked about is, hey, allow the people to direct that money without it going directly to the insured, without it going to the federal government around the world kind of deal, because that's where it gets lost in the shuffle, and we end up paying these insurance companies for coverage for people that don't even know they have the coverage. I mean, it was a large number of people, it was reported last year, that are enrolled that never filed a claim, which is how you know. And the same thing in Medicare and Medicaid. Most of that misspending is coming on the provider side. It was exposed in Minnesota under Medicaid. Those are people that, again, are providing services under the program, getting reimbursed for those services, but not really providing the services. That's what was exposed. Like, where are the kids here in the Leering Center? That's become infamous now. And then out in Los Angeles, it's all these hospice facilities, like multiple in the same building, but there are no patients. But they're able to file claims and manipulate the system and get paid for it. Coming right back in the Element Well studio.
Ruby red lips, blonde hair, blue eyes, and I'm about to bid my heart goodbye.
From theSeabrook.com.
Come on.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
All right, we are back
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Wes Gordon. We are back in the Element Wealth studio. The Taco Bell is still reporting that their foot traffic is down due to the lettuce gate. So I think that likely will blow over eventually. It's kind of my guess on that deal.
I mean, they do have a special offer on some of their products that don't have lettuce for $1. You get an enchilada or nacho fries for $1.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's an idea for sure.
One day only, tomorrow only.
Yeah, that's absolutely an idea. That'll work. So I was talking earlier about the people enrolled in the Affordable Care Act that never filed any claims, and the Democrats kind of have a spin on that. It's largely believed that's because people were getting signed up, didn't know they were being signed up, and then these insurance brokers that were coaxing them into doing it were getting paid by the federal government because of the subsidized premiums. And the reason they didn't know is because when Joe Biden became president and they passed the American Rescue Plan, one of the things incorporated in that legislation was adjusting the subsidy structure in the Affordable Care Act. What it did was the sliding scale used to determine the amount of premium cost out of pocket to a subscriber was changed such that, and it's based on income range, so those subscribers with the lowest income range, which was 100 to 150% of the federal poverty level, paid zero. So you could get signed up for coverage and never get a bill because your coverage was 100% subsidized by the federal government. And that's why it's largely believed that the enrollment, it did balloon, and it's believed because it costs less with the enhanced subsidies, but you had insurance companies signing people up without their knowledge because they weren't paying anything. So they never say, hey, wait a second, I didn't sign up for that, I got a bill. Well, no, they never got a bill. And the Democrats say, no, that didn't really happen. So I disagree with them on that. Jason Starkville says, I have plenty of insurances and I don't make claims. I hear you, Jason, but that would be unusual for many people from a health insurance perspective. Many people are going to have, I mean, there are statistics, by the way, that show what that percentage looks like of a given universe of insured. Insurance companies themselves, they track that. They look at the claims ratio, and they look at the number filing claims versus not, and then the ratio of the amount of premiums they receive, revenue they receive on premiums, and costs that go out. It's called the medical loss ratio, by the way, MLR. But most people are going to have some sort of claim during a year for health insurance. The exception would be young people that maybe have signed up for insurance through their employer but don't file any claims. But most of the people that are signed up in the ACA exchanges are going to be typically older, not elderly older, senior older, but just beyond sort of the age where you don't ever even think about getting like a wellness check. But you get to a certain age, most people are at least getting an annual checkup and filing a claim. And it's just unusual in that the percentage of enrollments without any medical claims was 35% in 2024. That's insane. In 2024, of course, was right after a couple of years. You had a year that you had at least enrolled. So that's right at the height of the time when these enhanced subsidies had taken hold. So anyhow. Also, some doctors seem to keep elderly people coming more probably than they need to, says Paul in Meridian. Yeah, there's such a thing, I think, out there. It's over-doctoring. But I would argue that that's largely driven by the litigious nature of our society. It's protecting against lawsuits. And so they are just become overcautious. Yeah, and that does drive costs up. Right, I remember reading a report back when the ACA was being debated, back in it'd be the 2009 timeframe, about California and how medical lawsuits had just become rampant. They estimated like 30 cents of every dollar you paid in premiums went to lawyers. That's believable back in those days. Now, that's been reined in somewhat with tort reform and some other state-level legislation. You remember it wasn't too long ago, Haley Barbour was governor here, and we were at risk of not having any OBGYNs practicing in the state because that had gone so crazy. It was jackpot justice, honestly. You know, something goes wrong, and man, you blame the doctor and everybody else involved, and you take them to court, and you're bankrupt. I mean, or if you weren't, the cost of malpractice insurance was so crazy, ridiculously high, you couldn't make any money for the risk associated and the investment associated with becoming a medical doctor, especially a specialist like that. So that changed, fortunately, but yeah, that's the reason why I think you see a lot of over-doctoring going on is really because of lawyers. On the C Spire text line at 228, you talk about all the jobs that the data centers are going to create, but you don't talk about all the jobs they're going to erase once it's there. Well, I would say two things to that. We're not going to slow down artificial intelligence. It's just not going to happen. I actually believe that there are jobs that are going to be eliminated or certainly changed, but I also think there's a whole new swath of jobs that will be invented, if you will. I also think there are a lot of people. By the way, I read a report, the million job openings we have in this country, employers are reporting they can't find the people with the skills. They're also saying if you're an entry-level person, we have jobs for entry-level people. We don't have jobs for entry-level people that are not proficient in using AI. That's what they're reporting. Even small employers are reporting this because they're finding tremendous value out of the technology. So it's why Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, the graphics processing unit chip maker, says AI is not going to take your job. Someone who's using AI is going to take your job. Now, that's not to say that there aren't certain jobs that we're just going to automate. But that's been going on for a long time. We have developed and invented lots of automated tools that have replaced lots of jobs through the years. Maybe the rate at which that's occurring is faster just because everything's faster because of our digital world. But I remain optimistic that there are going to be a whole new range of jobs that aren't even a twinkle in the eye today that this technology is going to drive and create opportunity for. Heck, just the one I was talking about earlier, the young lady that invented this super cool IoT system and hormone testing system. I mean, that's essentially creating jobs in her company with this technology that's solving a societal problem, the spoilage of food, as an example. A lot more, tons of other examples. It's more of a rotation and an evolution and a transformation than it is a replacement. I've said before, I think our government should adopt a policy whereby we don't create any new jobs, we don't replace any attrited jobs unless the management of the agency that's seeking to hire those positions can prove that AI can't do that job. Would people object to that? I thought we were about shrinking government, shrinking the payroll of government. Here's the way to do that. Final segment coming up in the Element Wealth studio.
Nowadays, Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
awesome. On SuperTalk Mississippi.
A little U2. We're back in the Element Wealth studio. Final segment. You got to share that with the folks, Rhino, about this new air defense system Greek is installing. Greece.
Yeah, the Greek military put out an announcement that they're finalizing a deal worth $3.42 billion to acquire an advanced, multi-layered Israeli air defense system. And they're naming it the Achilles Shield. And I just wanted to point out, and I pointed out during the break, that I feel like they're forgetting a key part of that mythology, their own mythology, which is a bit awkward, because Achilles did have that one glaring weakness that wound up being his downfall. Not real sure you want to name your advanced multi-layered air defense system after a mythological person who had a glaring weakness.
It's clever. It's cute. But, yeah, might want to think twice about it. On the C-Spire text line, Rob and who else? Paula Meridian. Yeah, they point out the same thing, and I agree. Well, we're talking about those that were enrolled in the ACA exchanges, that 35% of them never filed a claim, which leads one to believe they were enrolled and didn't even know it. Yet the insurance company was getting the subsidized dollars from the federal government. Say, well, yeah, I just made the point that most people still are going to have some sort of claim on their medical insurance, their health insurance, especially I would think those enrolled in the exchange. They're not likely to be the 20-somethings that probably don't go to the doctor, or 30-somethings. And they both said, yeah, when you get older, of course, you're going to get the kind of the over-doctor treatment because you're just higher risk. And, of course, sure, that stands to reason. I think most primary care physicians, for example, recommend 2 checkups a year over the age of 65 as opposed to 1, which is standard prior to that. That's just one example. And then other things that it's recommended that at least you do some tests for once you get the body gets a few years on it. So, yeah, I agree. Let's see. Mick in McCall says, think of elevator operators before automation. Yeah, and there's a million examples of that, Mick, that we were talking about earlier, how automation can displace, replace, and essentially cannibalize certain jobs. I think it's just happening at a faster rate. I think what's shocking folks a bit, Rhino, is that now we have sort of the next level of technology and automation in artificial intelligence, which is able to do white-collar jobs, which typically were considered, in many cases, not at risk for automation. Right? You think about automation taking more physical labor in a factory, for example, even on farms, as an example. And by the way, when folks gripe about, well, these data centers take a lot of land and they don't hire a lot of people, well, neither do farms, right? And that's the way we want it, because it keeps the cost of the food and the goods they produce lower because they don't have a lot of people. We've automated the heck out of that through the years, which is a good thing. It wouldn't even be financially tenable without that. So
if we never progressed technologically, we'd still have farriers changing horseshoes for everybody. We'd still have telephone operators. We'd still have elevator operators. You'd still have radio repair shops. You'd still have TV repairmen.
Yeah, that's all the above.
You'd have never had air travel. You'd have never had bus travel. You'd have never had cars, trucks, vans.
Well, don't forget, was it a year or so ago?
Bicycles.
Big argument, strike by the longshoremen union. And one of the things they wanted in their contract was a prohibition against automating the companies they work for. And by the way, this wasn't AI. This was just loading and unloading equipment and automation that dealt more with the just movement of goods on and off of ships. No,
you mean
can't
like
do
taking
that.
the giant container full of stuff off the ship and putting it onto a truck instead of paying union wages to 4 dudes to stand around while one dude unloads one container into another container already on a truck?
Well, remember, the other thing was just the tabulation of the movement. They had 3 people in a little booth. 1, 2, but automated systems had been invented that you don't need that anymore. They can track all that stuff, by the way, and never make a mistake, essentially. And they no, we want that in our contract. And these were people making 6 figures. And by the way, nepotism. Remember that? Passing on the jobs to their offspring.
Yeah, the union's not brave enough to fire the guy with the Sicilian name with a clipboard and a pen.
That's right. Oh, man. Look, by the way, this person says, I think y'all are doing a great job. Little preachy on data centers. Man, that's because there's just so much misinformation out there. But appreciate that. It says, keep up the good work. Look at how many people are used to take to make a car versus now, thanks to automation, 100%. Guys knows what a car would cost if we had that same
It'd be a
model.
Bentley. Bentley's still handmade. Rolls-Royce still handmade. That's what you get.
Stay safe and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.